You guys have some really good questions. Questions like,
How do I get the Daw Remote button to work? It doesn't even seem to want to turn on. And how do I use the X32 as a control surface so I can use it to control Cakewalk? And how do I use the effects built into Mixer to record an audio track? And how do I map MIDI messages so I can use external hardware to control Cakewalk? And how do I give extra commands to the Behringer?
this is Marcus Curtis from Marcus Curtis Music, and we're going to explore all those questions in a lot more detail, and we're going to do it right now. Okay, the Behringer X32 is primarily designed to be a live mixer, and of course, as you know, these first 8 channels handle the inputs, and these next 8 channels handle the outputs. But it can also be a mixer used in a recording studio or as a recording console, and to access that feature you have to hit this button that says Daw Remote. Now you notice as I hit this button, the remote function doesn't work, and basically what that would do is it would take these 8 channels and allow me to control DAW applications with it. So I can control Cakewalk with these 8 channels, but I can't get the button to come on and off. But that is fixed in settings, and it's shipped that way from the factory, because once you hit that button it leaves from being a live mixer to a studio console. So to set that up, what we have to do is we have to go up here. Let me zoom in a little bit better here, just a little bit. Now we have to go up into setup here, and then we have to key over here till we get to remote. Okay, and you'll see that the DAW remote button is actually tied to this thing that says remote button, and all you have to do is push in that, and it says, now it says enabled. So when we zoom back out, you see when I set this DAW remote button, it now comes on. Okay, but we have more setup to do, so we're going to zoom in a little bit more. I'll show you what else we need to cover. Now the next thing we have to cover is what type of MIDI we're going to use. Okay, so we have RTP MIDI, and that basically is for networks and routers and that kind of stuff, Ethernet connections. We're not going to use that because Cakewalk uses the USB card. Then you have this one right here, the MIDI in and out. That is for the MIDI in and out that is built into the mixer, but we need to go into the card, so we just rotate this knob till we get down there, pushing the knob and to make the selection. So we need to now select a protocol. Okay, so for our protocol we have the generic CC, then we have the Mackie HUI. Now you would select this if you're running Pro Tools and you wanted to sync this with Pro Tools. We go up one more until we get to the Mackie MCU, which is Mackie control unit. That's what that stands for. Hit that, and now we're on the Mackie control unit setup, and that's what Cakewalk uses. So now we're going to come out here a little bit further so you can see what we're doing here. I'll back this up a little bit so we can get a little bit better view. Okay, so now when I press Daw Remote, notice that it turns red, but also I have bus 9 through 16. That's what you want. You need it to turn red, and you need bus 9 through 16. That's how it's configured properly. Let's go back in. I'll show you one more thing before we leave this section. Zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so this portion right in here can only be adjusted in the mixer. You need the screen to adjust this. All this information here can be adjusted in the app. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the app, and we'll explain this in a little bit more detail.
Okay, so in Windows, we're going to go ahead and start the Behringer app, and it's going to come right up. And you notice that we're not connected. It has not connected us. Sometimes it does this. We're going to go through setup and connect it though. You can see we have no hardware. Our card should display there. And in routing, we should see our external devices plugged in. So let's go back to setup real quick, and we're going to go over to connection. Now we can insert an IP address manually, or we can hit scan, or we just click on the IP address we have and then click on connect. So you'll see mixer to PC. We're going to click that. Okay, so as that loads, you're going to see over here to the right side, we're going to have our, there's our USB card, there's our sample rate, And here's our external hardware, okay? So we're going to go to setup again, and we're going to go over to the card, and we want to set this for 32 tracks in and 8 out. This is ideal for recording. Over to the mixer, we want to set our sample rate at 44.1K. You can see now over here it's recalibrating everything. Okay, so we're good to go over there. Let's go ahead and go to Midi Controls, okay? So we're not going to worry about MIDI receive because we're going to transmit from the Behringer, and we're going to click on the pan, the mute, and the fader. Those are the only three we really need. Okay, MIDI in and out is a MIDI in and out built into the board. RTP is Ethernet or the router type MIDI. We don't need that. We need the card MIDI, the USB card. That's what Cakewalk uses. Now the Midi control unit needs to be enabled, and we can't enable it here. We need to go down to MIDI output and select the Behringer drivers. We need to go to MIDI input and also select the Behringer drivers. Now we can enable the Midi control unit. Now let's set up the rest of our hardware. Now as a MIDI controller, I'm going to use the Yamaha MX61, and it comes with the Motif sound library, which is an excellent sound library. But we can also use this as a MIDI controller. It plugs in via USB, and it has this button on here that says Daw Remote. And all you have to do is press that. You'll notice that it changes over here. We have 4 knobs, and that's in relation to these 4 knobs here. So we can actually MIDI learn settings that are in Cakewalk and use those settings to control software synthesizers. And the cool thing is you don't just have these 4 rotary knobs. You can click another bank, and there's even a third bank, and now you have 3 banks of 4 knobs, which gives you 12 rotary knobs that you can use to control a software synth. Okay, now that our hardware is set up, we're going to go ahead and open up Cakewalk by BandLab. And when that opens up, we're going to open up a new project. We need to demonstrate the hardware and how it can work remotely. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the inspector, we're going to get rid of the browser, and we're going to create 16 tracks. Everything uses groups of 8, so we're going to create 2 groups here so we can show you how we can use the hardware to control Cakewalk. Hitting F on the keyboard will expand our tracks, and we'll hit D to bring up the console view. And I'm going to change the preview bus color to blue. We'll change the metronome bus to purple, and we're going to move this over a little bit so you can see everything in the control panel. So the next thing we need to do is call up preferences by hitting P on the keyboard. And once that is done, we're going to look for, under MIDI, we're going to go to Devices. Under Devices, you can see all of our current hardware that's plugged into the computer. Under Instruments here, we see no hardware is listed as the output channels. We need them to go into the software synths over here in this next box. So let's go back to Devices. Okay, so we have the X-USB MIDI in. That's our Behringer. We're going to click on Use Friendly Name to represent MIDI devices and warn about no MIDI devices. Now when we double click on this, we can change the name. And we're going to change it to Behringer in. Make sure you use in. You want to know the difference between an input and an output. That's important. Okay, so we're going to double click down here and we're going to make it Behringer out. And this way we can easily identify our Behringer device. Okay, so we also have our Yamaha hooked up, but when we go over to Instruments, notice there is nothing in here. And now we need to check mark some of these things. So let's go ahead and check mark Behringer in, and we'll check mark Behringer out. And before we hit apply, let's go over to Instruments, and now we're going to go down to apply, and you'll see all the hardware that's listed in this box. Okay, so we're going to go back to Devices, and we're going to enable the Yamaha next. Okay, so we're going to enable the output and the input, and we can move the device to the top. The order is important here, so we are going to hit apply. And we can see as we go down to Instruments, well, I'm going to scroll down, you'll see the Yamaha is behind the Behringer. We need the Yamaha to be out in front because we want the Yamaha to control the software instruments. So we're going to go back to Devices. We're going to uncheck the Behringer. We're going to click on Move to the top. Then we're going to click the Behringer. When we go over to Instruments and hit Apply, you'll see now the Yamaha is on the top and the Behringer is behind it. That's what you want. okay? Because the Yamaha needs to control the software synths and the Behringer needs to be the controller surface, okay? So the next thing we need to do is set up a control surface. So we click on control surface. We're going to hit the yellow plus sign to set one up. And we're not going to use Midi controller. We're going to go down to Midi Control, okay? Here's our Midi control unit. We have the Behringer is selected as our input port. Now we need to go down to the output port and select the Behringer out. So now we're good to go. Hit OK. And then once we do that, we can let's move this box over here just a little bit. You can see that we have a little check mark here. This is where am I? Here's the where am I color. And we go down here to the console view, you see it's green, it matches the color, and it's over here in the track view. If I uncheck this, you'll see that the colors have gone away. You need that check because you need to know what you're controlling in the hardware, okay? So you can change the color too if you want to. Blue, say you want to change it blue, now they both turn blue. Console view and the track view, okay? So we're going to go ahead and change it back to green though. And so we have a couple other options down here. Where am I display? If I click console, it goes away on the console, but now it's displayed in the track view. Okay, so if I go back to the console view and uncheck it in the track, you can see it's not in the track, but it's in the console. Okay, so we're all set there. All strips means that it goes across all strips, even channels that are hidden. Okay, so it looks like we're all set up here. Let's go ahead and hit apply and close. Okay, so what we're going to do now is see our map. Let's go to utilities. You'll see Midi Control Unit 1. That's the controller we just set up. And this is the thing that tells Cakewalk how to interface with the hardware. Okay, so now let's go see what this thing can do.
So now at this stage of the game, we can ditch the mouse and then we can use the remote. And basically all you do is hit the Daw Remote. Notice the faders come up to line up with the faders on the first 8 channels here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'll show you, we can mute every track if we want to on the first 8. Okay. We can solo every track as well. In addition to that, our faders work in conjunction with the board, anything we set up. So there's other options we have too. While we're on bus 9 through 16, we can hold down bus through 1 through 8 and we can use the mute buttons to arm any track we want. We have to keep this button held down though. It turns on red on here. Okay. And in addition to that, we can hold down the groups 1 through 8 button, DCA button here basically. You can keep that held down. And now when you hit the mute button on the second channel, you move the where am I at, or where am I basically, over to the next group. So now you can use these controls on the next group of channels. And one of the best parts is that you can switch down to the matrix main C button. And when you do that, now the mute buttons become your play, your record, your rewind, and all that kind of stuff. Let's say, for an example, we have our choice between bus 9 through 16, we can use the mutes and the solos, or we can go to the matrix main C. We can hold down buses 1 through 8, and let's say we want to arm the first channel for recording, just hit that, and we should arm it. Oh, but see, we're on channel 9 because we're on the next group. So let's go ahead and unarm that for recording. And let's go ahead and hold down the DCA group and then move that back. And the other thing I should tell you as well I got this DCA group going, on the 4th channel I can move this over in increments like this. And then I can move it back on the 3rd channel, goes the other way. And then the 6th channel here, this one right here, actually the 5th channel, changes the buses as you can see. Okay, so we can manipulate that. But now that we're on the 1st channel, let's go to hold down bus 1 through 8 button, hit the first button mute, and we've just armed it for recording. So if you want to start recording, all you have to do is hit the mute button on the 8th channel, and it's started. It's recording right now. And then when you're done recording, all you have to do is hit the stop, which is on the 1st channel. Go ahead and stop it. Now if you want to play, the 2nd channel is to play. So you hit the mute button on the 2nd channel, it starts to play. And the 1st channel, of course, is to stop. The 2nd channel is to play, but if you hit that button again as it goes, you'll see that now you can pause it. And then you can move the now time, that's this line right here, you can move the now time forward by the 5th channel goes forward. Well, that's the 6th channel. No, that's the 5th channel. And the 4th channel brings it back. And that's basically how your remote works. But there's some extra features. We're going to go ahead and look at that right now.
Okay, let's start by undoing our recording here. Now we're going to go over to Utilities, and we're going to call up our map here for our Mackie control unit. Just go down to Mackie Control 1, and it comes right up. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's move this to a better viewpoint here. Okay, so we have a lot of different things we can adjust here, and we're going to go start with the meters, and a drop-down box comes, and we're going to change it to signal LEDs plus meters. Okay, there's a lot of options in here. I'm not going to go over all of them, but you can experiment, come back and click on what you want. I'm going to check select highlighted tracks. Okay, now I tried to double click to select. I didn't really care much for what that did. But just go through here and play with this, and you'll find it will affect different things in the mixer. And now let's go back to the mixer and we'll pick back up.
Okay, so let's talk about the features we've just added. We've added the use of the select buttons. So now I can use the select buttons to navigate the track view. And the way this works basically is I click the track I want. So if I want to go back to track 9, for example, I go ahead and click on select for track 9 because that's the group I'm on, and there's track 9 right there. So I can change the group if I want to change the group. I want to slide this back over to group 1. We'll hit the DCA 1 through 8 button, and then we're going to hit the first track mute button, and that slides this back over here. But as you see, we're still on track 9. But now what I can do is I can use the select button, and now I'm viewing track 1. So if I want to record on track 1, it's just a matter of arming that track and then selecting record. One more thing, let me show you the meters. Okay, here's another project I've loaded with another song. Okay, we're going to start playing back this project. But the cool thing is that the meters that are along here, right now we're in subgroup, we have the first 8 tracks here. But these meters will come in and be over here on the mixer. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start playback, and then I'm going to go in and change the color, because this is green. I'm going to change the where am I color so that you could see it better, so it'll stand out a little bit more. So let's do that. We're going to start, we'll use the mixer for this since we've already set it up. Go down to the matrix, and then we're just going to matrix main C, then we're going to hit play. And now it's starting to play back, as you can see. And notice the mixers, on the mixer here, the meters are reflective of the first 8 channels we have here for the drums. Okay, so it's hard to see that, so let's go ahead and fix that. So we're going to go over here to Edit and Preferences here. And then we're going to go to the Control Surfaces. We're just going to change the color to red. What's red look like? Red looks okay. What else do we have? Purple? No. Oh, that looks kind of cool. So here we go. There it is. We have complete control over the whole recording process. And everything that we have recorded in here is coming here. So we can turn things down if we need to turn things down. We can adjust the volume of individual instruments as we're playing back. The cool thing is, if you want to adjust the overall volume of everything, all you gotta do is go to where you have your routing, and you can turn the the overall volume down this way. So there it is. That's how you use the Daw Remote for Cakewalk. So why would you want to do this? Why would you want to take the mixer and make a remote control out of it when the mouse will work just fine? Well, for one, computers make a lot of noise. Okay, you can probably hear my computer right now within the mic, but a little bit of noise in the background is good enough to ruin a take. As if you're using microphones, that is. So if you're singing or miking an acoustic guitar, for example. So with this approach, now you can take your computer out into another room, get a longer HDMI cable, and now you can eliminate the sound of the computer in your recordings. So making this thing a remote is very handy for that. And there's a few other applications that work as well. So now what we need to do is figure out how to use our keyboard with the Behringer and have everything in one package. So let's take a look.
Okay, so let's go ahead and hit P for preferences, call it the preferences window. Okay, we're gonna go over to control surfaces, and we're gonna make another control surface. We'll click on the plus or add the yellow plus sign here, and we're gonna make an act MIDI control. And we're gonna take the input and make that a Yamaha. And we're gonna click OK. Our where am I color is now red. Okay, apply and close. Okay, so when we go up to utilities and it drops down, you see we have the Mackie control unit and the Act MIDI controller. Okay, so we're going to go over here to where we have our Act module here. We're just going to drag this over. You'll see the little edge here. Just grab that and bring it over, and it's going to unfold when you let it go. Okay, so this is what we use to control all of our control surfaces. So we can select the Act MIDI controller here, and if we hit on this right here, we're going to bring up our map to assign things to. And all we have to do is click on MIDI Learn and turn a knob on the keyboard, and it's going to learn that knob. And R is for rotors, S is for sliders, and B's are for buttons. Okay, and Shift B was actually what you would hold down to do the button. Then options, back here you have some other things you can adjust. So when you click Act, basically what you're doing is you're taking the assignments you made on your hardware through MIDI and you're applying it inside Cakewalk. So now you can take your Behringer or your MIDI controller, your Yamaha, and control things like EQ and modules within Cakewalk. You can also make Act MIDI controller for the Behringer too to add extra functions to the Behringer. Okay, so the where am I color, green, that's the Behringer. If you remember, let's hold down the mouse button, slide this down, and now you see underneath that it's red. That's the Yamaha. That's what the Yamaha is controlling. So let's move this back up over 4 tracks, and you'll see that as we do that, a little bit of shade of darker green covers the tracks that the Yamaha and the Behringer can control. So let's go ahead and move the Yamaha unit down here, and we'll use the Behringer, move that up there. Now we've just swapped the Yamaha and the Behringer. Okay, so if we click on channel 16, go hold down the shift button and go back to 13, and then just delete these tracks. What we'll discover is that now it readjusts, and so tracks 8, 7, 6, and 5 are darker green than 1, 2, 3, and 4 because those channels are still controlled by the Yamaha and the Behringer. The Behringer would have dominance over that. Okay, so now you see we have a basic project set up here, and if we click on our instruments here, you can see a list of all of our software synths, but we're going to do a different approach this time. Let's go up to Views, and then we're going to go down to Synth Rack, and you see the Synth Rack kind of loads over here in the bottom. Let's go ahead and move this to the top. I'm going to collapse the Help module, and then we're going to go ahead and move the Synth Rack to the top. We're going to create a little bit more room and pull the Synth Rack down a little bit. And so we're going to load software synths using the Synth Rack instead. Okay, so let's go to Insert Software Synth, and you can see it's listed by type. Here's all of our pianos here. So not all of them though. In uncategorized, we can have some other instruments down here. So let's look at another instrument. Let's get the this piano right here. Now this is one of the free pianos that we talked about in a previous video. Okay, so we're going to click on our little icon here, and the software synth unfolds, Okay, and so I can use the mouse button here and play some of these notes, as you can see. Okay, so we now, though, because our Yamaha setup, now we can play chords, and we can use this as a MIDI controller and just record this way. Fairly simple setup. This is one of the free software synths, and I'm going to leave a link in the video description of where this is located, so you can go get all the free software synths we're going to cover today. Okay, so hit the plus again, and we're going to go over to Rewire Device, uncategorized Melodyne. That's our only Rewire device. Okay, let's go down to plugin layouts, and now we're going to sort by manufacturer. Okay, it's changed down here, as you can see. But we're going to go up here to plus and add another software synth. And let's go down to Digital Suburban, and we're going to choose Dext. Yeah, with simple instrument track, it's all we need. And we're going to close out this and open up Dext by clicking on the icon here. Okay, so this is basically modeled after a Yamaha DX7. Okay, so we just played one note here, and this arrow here loads another sound here, as you can see. This is classic, iconic 80s. Dext is modeled after a Yamaha DX7, and all those sounds can be found in this thing. And this is awesome. And it's free, by the way. Okay, so we can click on the middle of this. You see all of our presets come up in this cartridge. And we can click on another preset here. See, which one shall we go with? How about that one? So, you know, pop music from the 80s, some of the metal music from the 90s, all that stuff can be traced back to the DX7, very iconic. So we click on a cartridge here, and we have our cartridge over here that's loaded. Okay, so in this subfolder over here, you're going to find more cartridges as we click on that. Okay, so let's click on another cartridge here. And here's our sounds, and you double click basically to load them in down here. Okay, so we're going to click on piano and go back to the main screen and set the mouse down here and play a little bit here. Very iconic sound from the 1980s. Very DX7-ish. So pick up Dext. It's free, doesn't cost anything, and it's worth having. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out some more. We're going to click on Insert Synth, and let's go to Layouts. So I'm going to sort by type. Now we've changed down to VST types. The cool thing about this in the Synth Rack is when we go down to Insert a Synth here, and we go over to a type, you can see that it's still arranged by manufacturer here, okay, which is a pretty cool thing. And all of these software synths that are free, a few videos back, we did a list. Okay, these are all installed in here, and we can go in and load any one of these we want. A lot of really good ones here. Okay, so let's do T-Force Alpha. We have not covered T-Force Alpha yet. Yes, this is a great sounding synth. Has a lot of good voices in it. And it's going to come up, and let's go ahead and click on the icon so we can see what the synth looks like. Pretty mean looking thing, isn't it? But it's nice. It's a great synth. So we'll just play just right out of the box. You have to forgive me, I'm not the best keyboard player in the world, but I just want you to hear what these sound like, and I want you to see what the Synth Rack does, okay? So we're going to do one more, then we'll close it down. VST3, we're going to go to Yuhi and Zebraletti, another great free synth. And there's going to be a link in the video description. We're going to click on this to open it up. And that link is going to basically take you to another video that shows you where to get all these synths, okay? So the Zebraletti is a great synth. And to change our voice here, we'll click on the arrow over here, and we can change to the next voice. If we click in the middle here, then the list comes up, and we can kind of advance going forward and back. And I'm doing all this with the keyboard here. If we go down to the last, here's Atlantic 12. I love this one. This is a great one. Okay, so let's go to the last voice here. Okay, the zombie movie score. Okay. Now, when we click on the arrow, it moves us over to the next set of presets. And So when we click in the middle, you'll see there's actually a different set of presets we're on. Okay, this is a great little synth. Definitely worth having. Okay, so to click on piano, and now since we clicked on piano, we can just play the piano if we want. So by clicking on the synth in the rack view, we just automatically switch to that synth. So we can use one keyboard to control everything, basically. Okay. So to delete a synth is fairly simple. Just go up to the synth and just go highlight the one you want to delete. Then click the X, and it will not only delete it from the rack, but it will get rid of all the associated tracks with it as well. So doing this procedure makes it easy to delete a synth if we decide you don't want it. Okay, we can even delete our piano here. Okay, so click on Dext and open it up. Go get Dext. That's the best one, I think. One of the better ones I have in the collection. I have a couple cables here. They have XLR on one side and 1/4-inch jack on the other side. We're going to unplug the monitor outs. We're going to take one cable going out of the right side and we're going to plug it into channel 8. We're going to take the other cable out of the left side and plug that in to channel 7. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to plug a guitar into channel 1. The object here is to take the monitor outs and feed them back into channel 7 and 8. Okay, so what we're going to do now is set up the effects the way we want the guitar to sound. And you can adjust whatever effects you want. And then just record from channel 7 and 8 into Cakewalk. And that's how you use the effects. Use the monitor out volume to control the signal flow. And wear headphones, because if you don't, and you're going through regular speakers, you're going to feedback.
Okay, that's it for this video. We are almost at the end of this series. Unless you have further questions, or you put those in the comments area, I can extend this series and do a few more videos. Then we'll move on to other things. I do have a few more tricks to show you, and we're going to get into a couple more things that are kind of a cool thing, you know. And well, if you want to see those and you want to be notified, go ahead and subscribe. And when those videos come up, you'll get that information. And if you like this video and you like the information in this video, hit that like button, because it helps me out with getting that video up for other people to find out about this information as well. You can follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Twitter, and you can follow me on Instagram as well. And on Instagram, you'll see a couple of music videos. You'll see maybe some pictures of me shooting these videos. Okay, so go ahead and hit like, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.